Hey everybody, we're going to give this a try. We're going to try to put together a little video series to try to answer some of the questions that frequently come up. So why don't we go ahead and get started. What I've got here is this little presentation to try to help explain some of the questions that frequently come up. So let's get ready, let's get set, and let's get fit. Where do I start? Let's start with some basic understandings. First of all, don't do anything until you've talked to a physician. Try to get an understanding of where you're at and what you can do. We don't want to hurt anybody. We're here to help. This material here is to do just that. But please don't make any changes until you've consulted a physician. When we get started, when we're talking about food, we first of all have to decide, well, what is a food? What is calories? Calorie is a measure of kind of food energy potential. There's 3,500 calories in a pound. A calorie is defined as a unit of measure to describe the energy potential of food. A calorie is the amount of energy needed to raise 1 gram of water 1 degree Celsius. So you can see, like in this picture, it's a match burning its heat into water, and as the temperature changes, when you move by so much, that's defined as a unit of measure of energy or work. And our bodies are big Bunsen burners, and they're putting out fire. That's what keeps us moving. It's burning fuel. So you have to feed that. What are you putting into your furnace to burn? You have different options, coal, wood, gas, leaves, what, you have different ideas, different inputs. In the food world, we have three: proteins, carbs, and fats. The way I like to think of it is a protein has to do with your muscles, carbohydrates are like quick energy, and fat has to do with energy storage. And so that fat, if you grab that area around your middle, you may have a lot of energy storage. So let's talk about that and talk about the composition of food, because your body's composition highly aligns with the composition of what you're eating, even if you don't know what it is you're eating. A protein, in terms of gram to calories, or how much energy potential a protein gram has, is 4. 4 calories is what 1 gram of protein makes. 4 calories is 1 gram of carbohydrates. 9 calories is 1 gram of fat. So when you're calculating on your plate, or you look on the back of a food label, protein, grams of protein times 4 plus grams of carbohydrates times 4 plus grams of fat times 9. Notice 9. So fat, the stuff that tastes good, takes over twice as much energy to burn. So that's a hint, as we don't need to put a lot of that into our diet, and it takes a lot to burn it. So if you're not doing a lot of physical activity, you probably don't need quite so much, because it typically rolls over and it stores it for a rainy day in your hips, in your belly, your face, your chin. So this is an equation that I use all the time, and everybody uses it for calculating calories. Now what we need to talk about is the profile distribution, or the macro distribution. I've got 2 examples, an A and a B here. You can kind of see on A is maybe if someone is 185 in that range, 200. They're very active. They need a lot of calories. And we'll talk about how much calories you need. There's guidelines for that, but the FDA recommends 2,000. So everything's sort of biased around 2,000. And a B is a 160-pound person. So in the first case, the macro distribution has to do with how you're eating your food. What's the composition of it? A lot of the keto, Atkins, paleo, they're different types of diets that are out there, and they already have predefined macro profiles. So you just follow that diet plan and you'll respond. But I like to kind of know a little bit more about what it is I'm eating. So by setting it, 40-40-20 is not a bad starting point, where 40% of your food is made up of protein, 40% is carbs, 20% fat. So you have to then calculate calories to grams, so then you can weigh it out, like on a scale. And that's where I'm showing you here. So you use your 449. So 4 into 100,000 is 250. 9 into 500 is 56. That would represent the grams of protein, carbs, and fat that you would have on a daily basis. So typically you add up all your meals throughout the day, and then you come up with this macro profile. The other one is what I also use when I'm weightlifting or doing heavy weightlifting, is I try to figure out a range of anywhere 0.7 to almost 2 grams of protein per body weight pound. So for a 185-pound person, if you're saying, okay, I need 185 grams. If you're not doing so much heavy weight, maybe it's a little less. If you do a lot more, maybe it's a little more. And then we pick 20% for a fat intake. And so you can kind of see how that would be a macro distribution of 30, 50, 20. So those are the ways that you set this. We'll talk about measuring it and what you do shortly. But this is an example of a client that had a protein, carb, fat distribution of the actual there. And you can see that the calorie input, they were heavy on carbs, heavy on fat as compared to our targets. So it was pretty clear they need to increase their protein and reduce the carbs and fats to try to get a macro distribution that aligns with that target profile. This is what I've had people say in the past is I measure all this stuff, but what do I do? Well, your job is to measure, record, and start moving in the direction of a profile, macro profile. Then over time, it's not going to happen in a day. It could be a week or 2 weeks. For me, it was a couple of weeks before of consistently hitting my targets before I'd start to see the impact in composition, weight, muscle, fat. So this is you're on a journey here, folks, but this is how this works. We're going to have lessons that talk about each of these areas. How do you balance the scales? How do you burn fuel? How do you read food? This was an introduction of the definition. There's a book we've written. Steve helped me as we went through my transition. As I learned it, I wrote it, and it became a book. It's on Amazon. There's the link if you want that, or just go into Amazon and type Tune Fit, An Engineer's Journey into Health and Fitness. We've written detailed notes on how you can learn and apply and become a better version of yourself. It's a journey, folks. We're just getting started. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and we're going to be doing a few more as we go. You take care, and you stay fit. Bye-bye.